Hey,
Hi, how are you?
good. Is everything running okay?
So far it is, yeah. Let me share.
Okay, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go get that sign-in sheet.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
No, you're good. You know, I didn't even offer. Would you like that? Fine. I literally, no, okay. Plus the logo. No, there's a little funny. Doesn't have like something the art on it with the things. And I get very thank you. But also I bite into it. Right, right.
You all good?
I took your pen earlier. You know, how did that happen?
I just want to make sure they
No, I'm checking because
the claims that
I put
sharing,
this,
but I
I
don't.
have the same pen. And let me start from there. Yes, I have the same pen. When I walked out of my office, I could have sworn I put it in here. So in my brain, it magically appeared.
Oh, I see.
On the other desk. So I'm like, oh, it's my pen.
Oh, so it was on my desk and
You were signing
and
in.
you grabbed, that makes sense.
No, the instructor just said, what's his name?
David,
He is so funny.
I can just imagine his classroom.
Okay, so we're gonna get started. Can everyone on Zoom hear me good? Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so today's presentation is going to be on nutrition for high-stress jobs, fueling the body and brain for performance, energy, and resilience. And then I will also be promoting some cost-effective option for the salary employee. Okay, so what is stress? Stress is the body's natural response to increased pressures, demands, or challenges. We technically have two types of stress that we deal with on a regular basis. Acute stress, which is short-term or immediate stress. It can be classified as traffic or small inconveniences. Long-term stress is more ongoing, and work actually falls within the long-term stress category. What does BC employee stress look like? Well, Bakersfield College, as of last year's fiscal numbers, is serving 44,803 students. Our enrollment has increased 64% since 2021, and our college, as of right now, offers 137 degrees and certificates, but keep in mind that number grows on a regular basis. Approximately, we have about 1,092 employees, and this is not including, this is employees as a whole. Keep in mind, not all of our employees engage with students. So our ratio is going to change a bit. With the number at 1,092, we're outnumbered 32-1. However, if we take it down to just staff that engage with students, we're looking at anywhere between 49-1 or 63-1 for most faculty. So being honest, we kind of have to, we're greatly outnumbered, just in a nutshell. 84% of our students identify as part of a minority group. So that's anything from being affiliated with racial and ethnic minorities, religious minorities, gender or sexual orientation, immigrant, refugee, age is even classified as a minority, disability, or even linguistic. Yes, ma'am.
So, is it possible to move
I was
it?
trying to figure that.
Okay, it's covering up some of the text and I didn't want to miss anything.
Yeah, I was trying to figure that out, but it wasn't allowing.
Is it showing you the same thing on your screen?
No, it doesn't.
You have to mouse over
Okay.
to the
There we go.
director screen.
Okay on the top saying this meeting is being recorded.
No, I see that, but where do I
Click OK first.
Keep moving the mouse off the screen until it lands on that one.
till it comes over?
Yep, it should go over.
In the way.
Oh, here she goes. Okay, there we. Sorry, and then how do I do
I think
the?
you
I don't know, just drag it, yeah.
Okay, cool. I don't want to, because we had an issue last time with this. Can you put on the bottom? There's not really much down that's gonna show up. Okay. Oh, thank God. Let me find my mouse again.
I don't know if you could maybe move it to your screen too.
Oh, maybe.
You know what, if you have to go to the display settings, it might be my fault because I had a workshop in here this morning and I changed
Oh.
display settings.
Oh, no, hold on. Yeah.
If you go to your main screen.
How do I get it out of here? Okay, there we go.
Oh,
She's here. I found it. Ahead and get us back on track. Okay, there we go. Okay. So back to the presentation. The Welcome Center is our first line of defense. They are the area that is dealing with enrollment, registration, admissions questions, financial aid. They really just get the bulk of it. So if you work at the Welcome Center, I am so sorry. And then later this trickles over to our other student services and instruction. So we're pretty outnumbered, but it's actually a great thing. That means there's a lot of people trying to change their lives and break their cycles. So that's phenomenal. Okay, why does this matter in higher education? Well, college staff and faculty, they balance heavy workloads, clearly, 44,000 against 1,092. We help students with financial aid, registration, enrollment, student services, such as counseling and advising, or even some of our programs, EOPS, SOAP. There's different AB 540, there's different student programs that are constantly putting our students where they need to be as a top priority. Our responsibilities as an employee on this campus does not just end with student service. We have other responsibilities. We have meetings, which are department meetings, committee meetings, pathway meetings, commencement meetings, staff trainings we're in right now, union meetings and updates in policy, and there's just campus-wide responsibilities that we as staff are responsible for. So stress is going to cloud our ability to function properly. It's clouding our ability to give 100% to our students and our team. So whenever we have high stress, it is giving us cognitive function issues, emotional regulation issues, and then prolonged, it can turn into long-term well-being and burnout risk. It's very hard if you're operating on a high level of stress to maintain consistent excellence for your team and your students. Sometimes on campus, you're going to be the only person that student or potential student is going to engage with. So their interaction with you is going to set the tone for Bakersfield College as a whole. Higher education professionals often support students and staff over themselves. Nutrition helps maintain clarity, patience, and sustained energy throughout demanding semesters. For our cognitive function, this is going to affect 4 areas of your brain. If this is clouded by stress, it's going to affect your decision-making and problem-solving skills. With emotional regulation, this is also going to affect an additional 3 sections of your brain. And this is going to enable us, well, we're not going to be able to control our emotions. So if we're having a bad day, it's gonna, like if our nutrition is not good, it's going to be very evident that we're having a bad day. We're not able to control or regulate those emotions. This alone will impact our students, our engagement with our students and our teams. So what happens to the body when it's under stress? So our fight or flight is our body's automatic survival mode. I refer to this as the panic button. So pretty much your body, much like the movie Inside Out, there is a control panel. Whenever your fight or flight is activated, it's like hitting a panic button. So it's going to then trigger the area of your brain called the amygdala to release, it's reacting to fear or stress. Then the amygdala is going to travel down to your sympathetic nervous system, which I refer to as our body being on 10. This is going to heighten your senses, dilate your pupils, increase your breathing, increase your blood pressure. Everything is going to go to a level of 10. So whenever this occurs, your body's going to start releasing cortisol, which is known as the belly fat hormone. So even if you're not eating bad foods, you're still going to get belly fat because it is releasing that hormone. And also adrenaline. What happens over time is if we're having stress or our fight or flight panic button is being activated regularly, consistently, your body is going to start recognizing that level as baseline. It's going to start thinking that, oh, this is normal because I feel this so often. So what'll happen is your body will stay in triggered mode. It'll stay on 10. Even in a calm, like you're getting a massage, your nervous system is still activated. It's still on 10 because it is so used to being in that tone or that method. With time, your metabolism is going to suffer. You're going to experience insulin resistance, abdominal fat, and blood sugar intolerance. Then later it'll trigger over to your cardiovascular system because your blood pressure is raised so much, it can increase your chance of heart disease. Digestive system is going to suffer. This can go one of two ways. You could have acid reflux and experience indigestion on a regular basis, or you can have IBS symptoms where it's diarrhea on a regular basis. Your brain and mental health, your memory is going to be impaired, your concentration, it's going to trigger anxiety, depression, and sleep issues. So common campus situations that I've seen where the stress is ultimately higher on campus for staff or faculty is typically grading deadlines is one of them, registration and enrollment, orientations for different programs, counseling and advising appointments. So every time registration starts up, counseling and advising gets really busy. And they're not able, with our ratio to student and staff, they're not able to really have a moment to breathe. It's just back-to-back students a lot of times. Student crisis happens on occasion, so that we kind of mediate that. Unexpected meetings can even qualify in this area, and then financial aid deadlines and disbursement dates. So those are areas that I have noticed that it's increased. And all of these factors are going to trigger the same biological response. Panic button, putting your body on 10, making your body think that it's at a baseline when it's on 10. So stress is also going to impact your eating habits. We do skipping meals, stress eating, living on caffeine, and low intake of real food. Pretty much in a nutshell, we think to ourselves, for example, we're off for 2 weeks and you come back. I'm pretty sure your inbox was full because mine. That you're ignoring them or you forgot about them. So we think to ourselves, oh, I'm going to push my wellness break today, or I'm going to push my lunch back. Or eventually it turns into, I have coffee and chips that are in my desk. So that's where that kind of comes in. With stress eating, your sugar cravings are going to increase because your body recognizes sugar as a comfort food that gives you temporary energy. Or someone brings in the Krispy Kreme at 7:30 and you're like, let me grab one of those. And so your body is like craving these bad foods, I guess you could say. Oops, sorry. Jesus. Oh, all of a sudden it wanted to work. Okay. 1 second. Okay. So additionally, if you're eating at your desk because you're trying to get through emails, your body is not going to remember that it's full because your attention is on your work, not on breaking free and actually eating food or taking a moment. So caffeine, sugar, and stress. I'll be the first to say I live off of caffeine. It is my most favorite treat of the day. Mentally, as an employee, additionally as a student even, I'm just trying to get through the day. I'm just trying to get through my work so I can jump over to CSUB and go to my classes and then make it home to take care of my family. So caffeine is my ultimate go-to. However, our bodies become reliant. My body is fully reliant on caffeine. I do not function without it. If you're going to take caffeine, or if you're like me, it's suggested that you intake food prior to that beverage or caffeine. Caffeine is going to affect our bodies in a moderate physical form, whereas sugar is going to affect our bodies in a psychological and behavioral form. So like I was saying, mood regulation or emotional regulation, sugar is going to impact that quite a bit. High intake can actually worsen your anxiety and your irritability, and sugar is going to cause your blood sugar to spike and crash. So dehydration and stress. Dehydration, even if your body is slightly dehydrated, like say you typically drink so much water on a regular basis, but one day you're just so busy and you didn't really drink that much. Your body is going to immediately hit the panic button because it is recognizing that is low on resources. Well, by hitting the panic button, it's activating the body on 10. So guess what? You're blowing up those resources. You're sweating, your blood pressure is increased, you're breathing harder, and you're urinating more. So it's like a cycle. Typically, the goal is to take half of your body weight. So your body weight divided in half. And then, so say you're 200 pounds, you want to drink 100 ounces of water because you're dividing the 200 in half. That is typically what you should consume daily. I haven't even checked the chat. Like now I'm concerned. Okay, nobody said anything. I was like, oh gosh, because usually I have that student assistant helping me. So whenever your body is going through the panic mode, it's adding stress. It is adding this immense stress just from not drinking water. That is how sensitive the body is. So a key takeaway from this information, because I know some of you probably got that $50 Stanley for Christmas or the new Starbucks tumbler that just came out for the season. There's no point in having a $45 cup if you're not going to use it. Use your tumbler, use that Stanley, get your money's worth. So what are you guys doing to kind of work through your stress? Like what's your regular too?
Getting fresh air.
Fresh air, that's a good one.
I got Legos.
Oh, okay. I love me some Legos.
I think naps.
Okay, that is like the best.
10 to 15 minute naps.
I've done that before.
If you do more than 15 minutes, your body goes into 8-hour sleep mode. And that's why when you wake up, you feel more tired.
Mhm.
Put an alarm for 10 to 15 minutes.
That's actually really smart.
I'm writing that down. Sometimes just being in the sunlight.
Yeah.
Yeah, technically the sun is vitamin D. So whenever you step out into the sun, it actually, we're pretty much walking, talking plants. It gives us energy, it brightens us, it lifts us. So sometimes I remember when I was working in nursing, there's no windows in their office. So you're not getting any sunlight where I was sitting. And so that office is freezing. And so I would step out to get sun to warm up, but I actually would end up feeling better because it was summer. So, it's hot and the sun's beaming. So eventually I would feel a lot better within that 15-minute break. So those are all excellent ways. So we all know we can take breaks. Deep breathing exercises, box breathing. Typically, if I'm super stressed, box breathing is my go-to as well. Short walks. I do see people around campus taking their walks. Desk stretches, meditation, exercise, and naps, apparently. They're all excellent ways to manage stress. However, your nutrition can also be used as a tool. So supporting students and colleagues requires consistent cognitive and emotional resources. The food choices that we put in the tank, if our body is like a machine, they're either going to support those resources of cognitive and emotional, or they are going to deplete it. So for me, honestly, this is just being transparent. Emotional steadiness is a very important one for me. If I'm being honest, as mentioned prior, 84% of our students are facing a minority. So technically this means those students who are facing this are operating on 10 all the time because their defense is up. They're already have it in their mind. I'm on the defense. I'm stressed. I have this stressor that I didn't ask for. So they're operating on that level. So if they're interacting with us as staff, and we're operating on a level that's similar to theirs, it's not really going to be a good interaction. Or like for me, For example, if I have a student come to my office and sometimes, let's be honest, students will approach very aggressive. And it's because they're stressed and I get it 100%. I have a master's in matching energy, but here is not a place that I do it. That I have my emotions in check from the second I step on campus, because I know that I don't know what's going to enter my office. I don't know what's going to come through my email. I don't know what's going to ring on my phone, but I have to be emotionally steady for it. And so I started practicing fighting stress with nutrition about a year and a half ago because I learned about this. So our students are here because they have hope and faith in our programs to break whatever cycle they're living in. So if we have one coming to us in a very aggressive manner or a stressed manner, we have to have that emotional steadiness to show grace to them and give them the direction or the feedback that they need. Oh, additionally, sustain energy across instructional or long office days. We're on extended hours right now, so if we're putting the right stuff in the tank, we're going to be prepared for those long hours. We also have faculty that they do night classes, and I can tell you right now, those are greatly appreciated. Faculty that is willing to come forward and teach a night class that's until 10 p.m. is phenomenal, because as a student, when I was here, most of our students who are attending night classes are working 40 plus hours a week and then making it a priority to come to our campus to try and break whatever cycle. I know our communications classes, I think it starts at 6:10 to 10 something at night or 9:10 at night. And you have students that are working a full-time job and they're coming in because they are determined to break that cycle. So if our faculty or student assistants or whoever is working that evening is putting the right nutrients in their tank or in their body, they have the ability to give the same energy to that night class that they gave to their 8 a.m. course. So that's really important. Nobody's in the chat, okay. So key nutrients for high stress jobs. Protein. You want to have a moderate to high level of protein. Protein is going to support your neurotransmitters and steady your energy. Neurotransmitters like serotonin that promotes emotional stability and calm. Dopamine is going to support focus and improve mental energy. Norepinephrine supports alertness and concentration, and GABA will calm that nervous system that's hanging out on 10. Complex carbs are going to stimulate your blood sugar, reduce your stress hormones, and support serotonin production. And additionally, lower stress cravings. Healthy fats are going to support brain health. Our brain is 60% fat. So if you're putting the right kinds of fat, like avocados or nuts, into your diet, it is going to ensure that our cell membranes are operating efficiently and correctly. So it's going to regulate your mood and stress. And then long-term, you can actually see an improvement in cognitive decline, because our cognitive functioning will decline after 40, about 5%. And then it will continue as we get older. So it's really important to kind of try to prevent that if we can, or improve it. Magnesium is going to chill out your nervous system and reduce the stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Vitamin B is going to convert our food into usable energy and support that those neurotransmitters. So wellness on a budget, cheaper than therapy and easier than Banner. So as salary employees, I wanted to include that eating healthy or having proper nutrition, it can be very cost effective. I know that it can be hard that you get that one direct deposit a month and you're trying to stretch it to pay bills, If you're a parent, you're doing school activities or even just gas to come all the way out here, depending on what side of town you live. Groceries, all those items. So these are some cost-effective ways to help you spread your salary and also promote that nutrient breastfeeding tool. So these are all budget-friendly options. You can save the most by purchasing in bulk on staple items. Staple items would be like eggs, brown rice, beans, oatmeal. I know string cheese is cheaper at Sam's Club because I live for the string cheese. Other affordable stores are Aldi, Winco, Foods Co., and then additionally, do not sleep on Trader Joe's. They are actually very affordable, and then they have a lot of grab and go options that are phenomenal. Affordable foods to keep us calm, even during registration season. These are fruits and vegetables. Berries, I find, are most affordable at Sam's Club. I can typically get a huge pack of blueberries for $4 and some change, just depending. Baby carrots are always affordable, apples. And then if you're someone like me who forgets that there's asparagus in the back of your fridge, you can try frozen so that way they don't go bad as quickly. Avocados, when they're in season, you can find them affordable when they're on sale. Peanut butter is great, nuts when they're on sale, and then sunflower seeds. And then also a helpful tip is to kind of stick to the perimeter of your grocery store. If you notice, the perimeter is mostly fresh foods and it has less artificial ingredients in those areas.
The pantry always has sunflower seeds.
Oh, I know. I love the pantry. Okay, so to stay hydrated, you can jazz up your water. Infuse your water. It adds more flavor and will increase your water intake. Fruit that is in season is going to change every couple of months. So if you kind of stick to the seasons, it can ensure that you don't get tired of those flavors. Because for me, I get tired of stuff very fast. So I can only drink so much lemon water. Like we got to change it up at some point. And then I've also noticed that there's some people on campus that will use those flavor enhancers like Mio or Crystal Light. The only downside to those is they have artificial ingredients. And then with time, it can actually trigger like an addiction to the taste. So whenever you do have to drink regular water, you're not really going to want to. And then there's really no nutrition in those things. And then using infused water can reduce soda and juice cravings. So that was kind of like a helpful tip. So morning meals for high stress humans, overnight oats are very versatile. There is no right or wrong way to make these. You're looking at about $1.30 a serving. So for an entire week, you could make 5 for a Monday through Friday shift at $6.50. I have seen these oats at places like Jamba Juice and they're charging $11. And then in the grocery store now, they have like little small containers that are overnight oats that I guess you just add milk to them or water, whatever you prefer. Those are going for about $3.69 to $5. So you could actually save money if you do them yourself. I find berries to be amazing because they have a low glycemic index and then they also do not get mushy when they're sitting in the fridge. And then egg muffins. Egg muffins, you can make a batch of 12 for about $2.80 per, or yeah, $2.80. But if you add like bacon or sausage, it's going to increase to $4.86. But you have to keep in mind, Starbucks is charging $6 for 2 of these. So if you break it down, for about 2, you're spending about 90 cents, depending on what you make or what you add into it. For the egg muffins, you're looking at about 16 grams of protein. And then for the overnight oats, depending on the yogurt you use, you can get anywhere from 15 to 20 grams of protein. So this is going to keep your brain and your emotions and everything functioning well. And then stress busting lunches for higher ed professionals. So literally fajitas are my go-to. I live for the fajitas because you can make anything out of fajitas. You can do chicken, shrimp, beef, sofritas, whatever you can think of, you can add it. So for fajitas, you're looking at about 38 to 42 grams of protein. If you're putting, and then lower carbs if you're using brown rice. It's a lot better if you use the brown rice. Mediterranean bowls, this is more of an option. You can add chicken to it, but typically I do these on like a meatless Monday. You can do burger bowls, burrito bowls, grain bowls, or even stir fry bowls. And all of these are gonna cost you about $3.50 a bowl per serving. And then for the Mediterranean bowl, you're looking at about 35 grams of protein. Your carbs are a little lower. Again, like I said, if you're using the brown rice. For the bowls, if you compare this to running to Flame Broiler down the street, for a mini bowl at Flame Broiler, you're getting charged $9. The other day I went because I thought that I was gonna give myself a treat. And she was like, "Do you want avocado?" And I was like, "Yeah." Never said anything about that. And so just keep in mind, food, however you're going over your portions, what you're supposed to have, but if you do it at home, you're saving so much. I mean, $3.50. You can't find any meals for $3.50 right now. Okay, snacks that work as hard as you do. Greek yogurt parfait with berries. This is gonna run you about $2.80 a serving. For protein, like I said, it depends on your yogurt. There is a yogurt out there called Ratio that I believe it's about 20 grams of protein. It is the best yogurt I've ever had in my life. Like low sugar, low carb. It literally only has 3 carbs and it's phenomenal. And then as I said, your protein will just depend, 17 to 20 grams of protein for a parfait. And then the adult Lunchable or snack box, I would buy in bulk on these. You can definitely get these snack boxes for about $3.70 to $4.10, just depending on how you break it up. And then your protein's going to determine on what you put in it. You can get 25 to 30 grams of protein in these. So these are just suggestions. Office options for snacking. So this is a snack drawer, the first one. As you can see, it has like low sugar applesauce, Kind bars, Smart Pop, just different options. So if you have stuff to grab throughout the day. Another option, the one off the side, this is an example of an office that came together to make their own staff snack store. So there's 2 ways you can do this. The first way, whenever I worked at the county, is everyone would pitch in, depending on the size of your unit or your department, everyone pitches in about $5 to $10 a month. Someone goes out and buys items, typically at Costco or Sam's Club, and they have them available for their area for the month. And then every month, whenever people put in their money, they replenish those items. Another option was I saw a money jar that was placed next to a snack option. Everything had a price on it. Typically, I think the water was like 50 cents. Some of the snacks were like 75 cents. It just really depended. And then every month, the funds that were placed in those jars were used to replenish the staff snack store. So being realistic, we love our Nexus pantry. I love the pantry, especially during these times that we don't have students because I can get in there. But whenever we're on instruction months, the issue can be the line. There's a line because it is an excellent resource that our students use and it is doing the job. It is definitely fulfilling its purpose. But for us to get in there on a wellness break or a 15-minute break, it's unfeasible. We're not able to. So the staff snack store is kind of like an option to do during instructional months, just to kind of work together as a team. or a department to support each other towards healthy eating. And then these are smart snacks under $3. Yogurt and berries, apple and nut butter, trail mix, cheese and whole grain crackers. You really want to stick to combining protein and fiber. That's going to be the best bet for your brain. And then practical tips, take your breaks. Wellness breaks, dedicate lunch to disconnected you time. So Mikey goes to his car and takes a nap. That is dedicating to some you time for sure. You want to eat every 3 to 4 hours. Prep meals. Make yourself a priority and set time aside either over the weekend or even on our Friday early outs. You know, you're the second half of your day. For me, I do the shopping Friday after I get out because I'm like, once I go home, I'm not leaving. And so I'll hit the store and I'll buy what I need for the weekend to make my meals, and then I'll set a different day aside to do the meals. Make your nutrition an all-around physical and mental health priority. This is going to truly help your stress. It's going to help you from stressing additionally on figuring out what am I going to eat today? Or I'm going to lose my parking spot if I go down. And I feel like those are a little bit higher in price, but they're good. So when I make my own things that are similar to that, I save tremendously. Additionally, if you're worried about ideas, use technology as a tool. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you what I do because I get tired of foods very quickly. I get burnt out on certain meals. And so I use ChatGPT. I type in my weekly budget. I'll tell ChatGPT I need 5 lunches, 5 breakfasts, and 5 snacks at a $60 budget. And I want it high protein, low carb. And it will generate an entire meal plan for me with shopping list. And the shopping list is additionally separated by section. So it'll be like produce area. This is what you need in produce. And it'll break it down. And then if there's something that it mentions that I don't know how to make, I'll just ask, how do I make this? And it'll give me step-by-step instructions on how to make a dish. So it is pretty phenomenal. Snack drawers, like I said, those are useful definitely when you're grab and go, or if you have back-to-back meetings, oatmeal packets, seeds, dark chocolate options, sugar-free options. Breakfast, do not skip breakfast. It is the most important meal of the day. What you consume first is going to set the tone for how your brain and body is going to operate. High protein will ensure your body is responding at a top tier level. And then more importantly, just take it one day at a time. You're not always going to be functioning properly with your meal plans or with eating well. I mean, we understand there's birthdays, there's potlucks, there's things that happen on campus that kind of boost morale around here. It's okay if you fall off, just get back on the horse. So this is my example of the ChatGPT. As you can see, it'll break it down. It'll also even give me the macros for each meal that I'm eating. So for me, I try to aim towards 150 grams of protein a day, but that's something that's set by my doctor. Don't try to attempt it because it's hard. There's days that I can't even get over 100 grams. But if you're sticking to like a set level, it'll tell you right off the bat, these are your macros. This is what you're getting. If you're trying to keep, like, say you're on keto and you're trying to keep it under 20 carbs, you can type it in, do a keto meal plan, and it will generate it. And then additionally, these are some resources, some links to different meal preps. Tasty is actually a good one. They have back-to-back ideas like one pan meals, different things that'll help you also save money and save dishes. So I appreciate that. And that is all I have for you guys. Dang, it didn't go all the way, but I mean, we're okay. But I will be emailing those in the chat. The slideshow with my notes as well as the resources that I provided to the in-person.
Question, looking for suggestions, I guess, like, so I have, I'm an instructor, so I have.
Oh, absolutely.
A Monday, Wednesday schedule where I'm basically like classes back to back to back from 2 to 9. And the most amount of time I have is about 15 minutes if I'm lucky between classes. And a lot of times that's, taken up talking to students and stuff, which is fine, but it's like 2 to 9 is a long time for me to go without having anything, but I also don't have time, like even microwaving something is iffy, like probably can't happen. So like I'm open to suggestions, ideas that something that's a little healthier, but also very quick to just shove in my face.
So I'm really big on wraps. I do wraps. I get the low carb tortilla by Mission, and then I will put hummus on it for kind of like a glue. And then low sodium turkey, lettuce. Sometimes if you like cheese, you can add cheese. And then I wrap it up, and because I've lived that, when I was in EOPS, we were go, go, go. And I love that. I absolutely love it. But when you're go, 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 and then after you get off, you are driving to school and you're trying to take off your BC stuff because you're getting ready to walk into CSUB. Because I've had drinking it.
On a day, it's not that terrible.
It's
Like
not the worst,
it could be
okay?
a lot worse.
Yeah, it could definitely be a lot worse, but yeah, wraps are my go-to, and then snack boxes were another one that I was living off of for a while. I'm trying to think what else was really my good grab and go. And then if you do sandwiches, like sourdough bread is actually a lot better for your digestion. I just started my own sourdough starter.
Like to do it and
I started looking, I kind of went down a rabbit hole when we were off for 2 weeks, and because I don't do well without stimulation. If I don't have school or work, what am I gonna do? Obviously I can spend time with the kids, but they love spending time with me, but they also like doing their own thing. They get tired of me. So I went down a rabbit hole of moms and different people showing us what's in our food source. And so now it just opened like a whole new window of like, I'm making my own bread and I'm making my own wraps. And so there's always those options if you want to do like a sandwich, like sourdough is actually the better digestion option. And then low carb tortillas are great. Now, if you want a bigger wrap, you'd probably have to do a regular tortilla, but it's not going to kill you. I mean, you're not on keto, it's really not going to hurt you at all. But yeah, I mean, you can walk and talk with the wrap.
yeah, this is true.
Any more questions? You guys are like ready for the day to be over. I can see it.
I just wanna say, like, I really like your presentation. I like how you made it relatable and the humor and stuff. I like how you also added a piece in there that says like make small changes,
Mhm.
because the small changes is what makes those differences.
Yes, they do.
I studied Canadian, and then we learned about how diets don't work, right?
Mhm.
The reason why diets don't work is because it's not It's not if you fall off your diet, it's when. Stop
Mhm.
your diet. That's why it doesn't work. But if you make small lifestyle changes, small changes to habits, your lifestyle, that is what ends up being more effective. So like even something as small as like I used to eat like tortillas, right? A lot of tortillas, you know. Instead of like 3, I would like cut it down to 2, right? Instead of saying I'm gonna cut off soda or like tortillas in general, you know, you just make small little changes and it builds up over time.
Yeah, it does. It truly does.
Can I add to what you said?
Yeah.
Instead of thinking of taking away mindset, like I'm not allowing myself to have this, it's also important to reframe it in a way that's more helpful. I'm doing this because I love my body.
Mhm.
I am having 2 tortillas instead of 3 because I love my body, regardless of its size. That's more helpful in trying to make those
Absolutely.
healthy changes.
Yeah, you're promoting the self-love, and that's really important. I mean, so years ago, I did, and I don't suggest this because now like I'm suffering from it. So the ketogenic diet came out and I went hard for 4 years, like super hard. And it's easy to go hard whenever you're competing with people. Strict on that diet. And so 4 years later, I tried introducing carbs again. And now my body cannot digest pastas or breads. I get a rash on my skin. So I developed a gluten intolerance from those items. And trust and believe I still eat them. Like sometimes I still will. But I mean, you can't help it. If someone's bringing bread to the office and it's there and you're in a stressful season, I've grabbed bread before and then the rest of the day, like my skin is itchy. And I'm like, why did I do that to myself? But things like that, when you go super hard on strict diets, when you fall off or when you decide to come off of that diet, sometimes your body is so used to what you've been putting in it that it doesn't like to reframe back to the norm. So carbs are a huge issue for me. Breads and pastas are the worst, but you don't want to be in that position because if you're at events, every event that you go to, family, whether it's a wedding, baby shower, there's carbs there or there's foods there and you cannot eat them. And it's small changes. I should have really just went to small changes instead of being so strict. I should have lowered my bread intake or lowered my pasta intake, or maybe if I'm going to eat pasta, maybe do it earlier in the day. So that way later at night when my body's winding down, it's not holding all of that. Like I still have time to burn off those calories. So definitely stick to the small changes. It's going to help you in the long run for sure. Any more feedback, you guys? There's still people on the chat. I don't. Unless they just forgot to come off of the chat. I don't know.
Well, I know I just turned 50 and I wish that I would have taken better care and eaten right and drank all the water like I was supposed to. Cause it gives up. Now the doctor's like, well, you have to now.
Mhm.
Otherwise,
I feel like everything changes. Like once we hit 40, it changes because I noticed, well, actually after 35, I started noticing like my metabolism it's like slowing way down. And so it took a lot more for me to lose a couple pounds than when I was younger.
yeah.
And like our family every year, we like to my family is very competitive. It's a problem. They're all soccer players, so they're all competitive. And so every year they're like, yeah, we're doing it. Whoever loses the most is going to win, the money. Like we all put in money, like $20 or something. It's nothing crazy. But like my spouse will stop eating chips and he's already down 17 pounds. And I'm like, what is going on? And I'm over here like I'm doing Daniel fast right now, so there's no animal products involved at all.
Physiology, like it's
Yeah.
For them.
and female physiology, especially like you said, as we age, hormones play a big important role in a lot, and so it's just I'm there, I'm right there with you. I just turned 46 and I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah, menopause.
I know. I'm in that fun like
Yeah.
limbo stage. Yeah.
I'm fat and hot.
Yeah.
Days a week and only eating vegetables and fruit. And this guy cuts out chips and lose 17 pounds. And I'm like, oh, I'm down 3. And we've been going since the 1st. And so I was like, this sucks. And then
You feel better than you did before.
so I will tell you that going to strictly plant-based it's been a challenge. I am sick of beans. I don't know like
with exercising and stuff, but just like like physically, like
physically I do feel better. I
it's
feel
one thing, but then how do you feel?
I have more energy.
Stress.
It's not as hard to get up in the morning. I still have that Coke Zero every day though. I don't, it's my treat. But yeah, I do feel better. And so I'm approaching 40 this year and I'm kind of like, okay, I need to take care of myself. Or like my mom will be the first to tell me, she's about to be 60. And so she'll tell me like, hey, like, I don't care if you have a dumbbell at your desk, your body will turn into bristle, like you won't be able to move.
Oh, man. That's true though, like that's kind of one of my big motivating factors, especially as I've gotten older. It's like, oh, I don't really care nearly as much as like, oh, I want to be a certain size or be a certain weight. It's like I have active outdoor hobbies that I want to be able to do until I just cannot physically. And to do that, I have to I need to try to stay in shape. So it's just like, yeah, it's more about capability. Can my body do what I want it to do as long as possible?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I completely understand. Like, you want to be able to move.